Welcome to Accounting Year YouTube channel.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Untitled Chapter. As usual, I'm your host. I will try as much as possible to share my knowledge, looking towards the opportunity to get to talk and interact. I decided that we should divide this into two sections. Very theoretical. However, we're talking about the principles around analyzing the bank statement. And take next week Saturday, same time, we'll take maybe like 200 or 300 transactions, and we'll start from beginning to the end, and we'll see us analyze it like it and asking relevant and important questions. So, and at the end of today's training, or at the end of next week's training, I'll share the PowerPoint slide, which I have gathered information over time, things that you should consider. So this training, and get some information from one or two of you, which I can also add to. Jide, you're the host, so you'll be responsible for admitting people into. For those who don't know what I look like, let me give you the opportunity of seeing my face. So my name is Oladipo. I'm an accountant like every one of you. At the moment is financial reporting for a major player in the market. One of those that co-host or sales related accounting here. For the first time. Accounting here is a body that has been set up for professional learn, share, and help each other. Right? It was the establishment of accounting yard was driven by the need of what we faced as young accountants in terms of challenges we faced from practical. However, we've realized that there's a huge gap between what takes place in practice and what takes place in theory, what we learn in class in university or during our ICANN classes. Hear clearly. Oh, there's an echo. No. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me now? I don't know if you can still hear. Okay. Echo, you see here. You can see here echo. Let me know. I think I've corrected what was causing. So you can just send it. So like I said, so accounting had was set up so that we need to bridge the gap between what takes place in theory, classroom, and what we know, or what happens in practice. Right. So I've done my best in terms of sorting out whatever is causing the echo. And so far, and it's because of the room where I am. Hold on, let me try one more thing. So you can confirm. I don't think you should hear any sound anymore. I think right now I've muted everything possible that could cause the echo. So I want to believe that you shouldn't hear any echo anymore. Right? Okay. Oh, better now. Okay, fantastic. Okay, that's good. So now, since we are, like I said, my name is Oladipo. I'm the voice on the YouTube channel. So when we've set out the fields for people to fill, who answered what they think, what the challenges they face in analyzing bank statement and what they hope to achieve. So one thing I'll make everyone understand now is that not every question or any challenge that you wrote what's filling the form can be answered during the course of this training. However, some of the questions that were raised, I would tell you clearly that those problems will actually be resolved on, let me show you something. I don't know how many of you have been to the YouTube channel. So I'm going to just see that so that we can get to see what is available on the YouTube channel. So now, some who asked about preparing management account. It's a series where we took 3 sections, right? Where we talked about preparing management account. Section 1, this is 1, this is 2, and that is 3. And we took it from scratch to finish. The only thing that is available is the trial balance. So what we tried to do was pick the trial balance and walk you through to the end, right? So trial balance, use it to prepare income statement, balance sheet, and cash. Right? We worked it from the beginning to the end. And also brought analyze on specific Excel functions, which would be important to us in preparing such an account, right? So we are not going to prepare an account in this particular one. We're just going to be discussing what you need to look at when analyzing your bank statements. So just right. So I'm meeting people. So during the course of training, there's also someone GD will handle in terms of any participants. So that was just me just showing that perspective. So let's go back. Now, why are we doing this? Why did the topic come to mind? Right. So one thing that you agree with me as regards a bank statement is that most either they don't realize the importance of accounting, or they undermine the importance of accounting, or they hire someone who is not very competent. They hire someone who is not very competent. So because of that, a lot of things usually happen, right, as regards to how do we handle bank statement. Because typically what happens is most startups, they don't really bother. They just see that money is coming in and money is going out. They think they are making money. So they don't really bother about their accounting. So when they employ someone afresh, or when a consultant comes in, right, one of the things that challenges he has to battle with is that first, he needs to analyze every transaction that has gone through the bank, right? And based on that, we need to come up with a record of what the business has gone. However, accounting very well, you understand that the bank is just one element of the whole transaction, right? But the good thing is that it covers a lot, but it's not because we know that accounting is based on accrual and not based on cash basis, right? Because it's based on accrual, there are certain transactions that may not have been paid but have occurred for the business. However, since we know that a chunk of the transaction most likely either have been paid or have been paid in advance, which forms the basis for a lot of things, right? However, for us to get a complete set of transactions or complete set of things that happen in the business, we have to look at the business as a whole and look at various sides of the business in terms of processes that take place in that business. When I say processes, what do I mean? Typically, every business should have some level of processes. So, for example, a typical process that most businesses should actually have is what you call your purchase to pay process. That means how do they buy an item or how do they get an item up to the point it's paid for, right? Another key process most businesses should have is the revenue receivable process. That means how they sell a product or a service to a customer, how does it become a receivable, and how they even collect what has been paid for, what sold out, right? Then you have like a treasury process, which has to do with payment, bank reconciliation, how you manage your cash, right? You have what you call like your capex, right? How you high capital expenditure, how they are capitalized, how you dispose assets, a process around your payroll, so how salary is being computed, how you post them, and how you treat such transactions, right? So there's so many things. So however, you need to look at everything together, right? To get proper value for whatever you're dealing with, right? So in analyzing the bank statement, right, you need to look at the whole set, right? Look at everything that's involved. So now, what does this process actually analyzing banks, what does it contain? Now, things we put into perspective. Sorry. Yeah. So when we put this course together, this webinar together, we divide it into various elements. We call an element what we call the information request. Right? Element is an element called things to look out for, creating a structure, questions to ask, and consolidating your final output. We'll take each of these elements, space, section, we'll talk about it, we'll ask questions, and we interact, right? So information request is saying that when you are faced with this kind of challenge, what kind of information should you request for, right? So when you have the bank statement, you don't just go deep and just start analyzing the bank statement. No. There's a popular saying that if they give a farmer, right, they give him to the farm, or he wants to cut down a tree, what does he do first? He doesn't cut the tree. It takes time to sharpen the axe, right? Because the moment he's able to sharpen the axe properly, then cutting down the tree wouldn't take time at all. Right? Within seconds, the tree is down. So in this particular scenario, right, you need to know we need to know what are those information that we require, right? So information request is critical. Now, in information request, what are the things to look out for? Okay, so basically, let's talk about accounting. Information request. So like I said, most startups don't have proper records and only get to employ accountants when their records are bad, when business needs funding in terms of equity or debt, right? So typically, most times they're just doing their business because it's their own business, they don't really worry about it. But at some point, they need to approach the bank to get a loan, or they need to reach out to a third party to get facility. And then I'm telling them, okay, can you kindly show me your business records, right? Show me your financial statement, financial statements. Then they realize that, wow, I think I need an account. So you need someone to quickly clean up their books, put things in order. Now, usually, an accountant taking such a role requires the ability to and source for appropriate information. Basically, obviously, that person needs some information, right? So before you analyze the bank, you need certain information to analyze it properly. Because it's not just analyzing the bank, you need to allocate transactions appropriately to what they are meant for, right? So, and it's a good understanding of how the business operates that will guide how you allocate each transaction one by one. This comes eventually from the ability to analyze the bank statement as it houses most of the transaction, like I earlier said. During your first conversation with the clients, the owners of the business, you need to come up with information request list. Like I said, this is critical, right? When you are dealing with the owners of the business, you need to know what to ask for. Typical things that usually you ask for, right, based on the nature of the business, is ask for a list of their customers. Now, typically, why are we asking for a list of their customers? Most times, in the bank statements, you will find inflows, right? And the people that most times put inflows to the business are most likely their customers, or the owners, the shareholders who are putting funds to the business to run, right? Or the bank, maybe you got a facility for the bank and investing into the business, right? Or they are refunding the existing vendors. So typically, when you are dealing and analyzing the bank statement, you need to ask the person who owns that business, can you provide me a list of their customers? Most times, don't just ask for the business names, you also ask for the personal names of those owners of the business, right? If you ask for those two, when you see transactions from those people, you can allocate some transactions to those people, right? And that way, it makes analysis make sense. Sometimes, yeah, so that's what you do. So the next part is list of vendors. List of vendors also important. You pay vendors, right? When vendors deliver services to you, you pay them. And because you pay them, right, when you allocate payments to vendors, then you need to now be able to know who are those vendors. Now, it's not just wanting to get a list of vendors. It's good to know what services those vendors provide, right? So you get a list of the vendors. However, also get what do those vendors provide. Obviously, some vendors that provide multiple services. Get a description of what those services relate to, right? The importance of having such is that you'll be able to know, okay, for example, a vendor provides a service relating to, for example, supply of diesel, right? Diesel could be inventory, something like expense, depending on the nature of the business and how they handle it, right? So when you understand the vendor, who the vendor is and what it does, you know how to treat that transaction appropriately. Because don't forget that the end goal of partnering on this transaction is to post them into your general ledger, right? And post them to the appropriate expense leg, P&L, right? Whether your expense leg, whether revenue, your revenue GLs, your expense leg, your cost of sales, your finance costs, or post them to the appropriate vendor, post them to PP, right? So if you know what the transaction relates to, help you, if you know what the vendor, the service the vendor provides, you know exactly where it should be posted into in the GL, right? It's good to know the list of shareholders and directors. Now, why is this important? Now, the shareholders would have provided funds into that business, right? And because of the provided funds into the business, transactions from them are not things that will most likely be expensed, right? They will either be treated as a form of funding, right? Either in terms of its equity. So, for example, when you have a startup, one critical document that you should always have is a CAC document. Why is the CAC document important? The CAC document, all the CAC documents will give you critical information first to give you when the business was incorporated. The CAC documents will tell you who are the shareholders, who are the directors, right? And to give you the shareholding, typically when the business is established and shares are issued to people, right? Typically, we expect them to pay, give you funding to the tune of the shares allocated to them. So it's important to know who are the shareholders, right? And know the transactions that were routed through them. If you identify the transactions routed through them, you know whether it is an equity debt based on your discussion with the owner of the business, right? Also, directors. Obviously, you may have transactions. You need to know those that satisfy the condition which you call REN. That's reasonable, exclusive, and necessary, right? Only reasonable, exclusive, and necessary, right? So you know transactions that are actually for the business, or transactions that, oh, they took place through the business account, but are not meant for the business. It was only the fact that person was the director of the business that you need to go to that person. So it's important to know those individuals, right? So get a list of the individuals. I don't want to get a list of the individuals. It's also advisable to get a list of the businesses owned by those individuals, because at times you may not see transactions that relate to in that individual directly. You will see transactions relating to maybe their businesses, right? So when you see a transaction, it's for Oladele. However, Oladele is now Holiday Enterprises. So you may see a payment or a money that was paid to that enterprise. It may not be that, they routed you through that business, right? So it's good to know the list of the shareholders, the list of the directors, and possible businesses they own, because there are possibilities that they are related to them, right? So like I said, related party businesses also included. Now, typically, one thing that's also important is get a list of the assets. Right? If possible, know the person who supplied those assets. Now, typically, if the business does not have it, one good thing about assets is that it may not be a lot. So it may be a thing of so hold on. Let me see what I can do. I don't know. I've never really had this issue with sound before. Okay. So I have turned on the fan. The fan was just trying to just cool the environment. I don't know. Can you just please confirm if the sound is better now without the fan? Is it better now? You can just send a message on the chat room so I'll know that it's better. Yeah, it's better. Okay, fantastic. So the fan is no longer on. So now just focus on it. So now like I said, you have the list of customers, list of vendors, list of employees, right? List of customers, you need to identify inflows and allocate inflows to customers. List of vendors, when you have payments, you need to allocate payment to vendors. However, like I said, for vendors, you need to know the services they provide so that as much as possible, you know how best to treat transactions that are from vendors. Do you get? So it's not just a question of, oh, that is this vendor that did it. This vendor could provide different services. And by nature of service, you know how to treat it. And some transactions, for example, if they are service related, there's a high probability that they'll be expense, right? But if you have a vendor who supplies you, for example, inventory, right? Obviously, you may not expense such a transaction. So it's good to know the vendor and also know the nature of service that the vendor does for you. You need a list of employees because one, you could pay salary to them. You could actually give them like a float or an advance to do certain transaction on behalf of the business. So it's good to also understand who are the employees because you see transaction in their names. So when you see transaction in their names, you know, oh, they pay this on the employee, right? Right. It's also good to, apart from just getting a list of employees, it's good to know if the business owner has, sorry, someone is not on mute. Let us mute. Mute. Yeah. All right. So list of employees because you pay salary to them, you give them floats to actually carry out transaction in the business. So you may see their names in the bank statement, right? So it's good to know who are those individuals, right? So that when you see such transactions, you know, oh, this transaction linked to an employee, that will help you in asking the next set of questions, right? So now, like I said, list of shareholders and directors. Now, typically, like I said, one critical document that is required for most of the startup any business is CAC document. The CAC document usually gives you an idea of, for example, the shareholders and the directors. Now, typically, if you know the list of shareholders, hold on. Sorry, I'm coming. Let me see GD. So I'm trying to give someone the host so that I can focus more. Okay. So, like I said, list of related parties, right? Or list of shareholders. Typically, shareholders are expected to put funds into the business. Some may put in form of debt or put in form of equity, right? So the CAT document will tell you their shareholding and you know how much it should come from them. Because typically, when you see money coming from them, you need to know, oh, this money that's coming from the shareholder, is it, for example, it has to do with their capital injection into the business? Is it debt? But if you see them, you know that, oh, this money are from shareholders. So you'll be taking around most likely debt or equity, right? Or funding they're trying to give the business. Similar with the directors of the business, right? When you see transactions with them. So, like I said, you will know to identify a transaction if it meets the criteria of REN. That's wholly necessary, reasonable, and exclusive for the business, right? So, because most transactions you see with directors or shareholders, there is a possibility that maybe the business has not decided, they've not done it so that they try to separate the business from the owners of the business, right? So, you need to identify transactions that are with these people and know what they are meant for, right? Because typically, if they are not for the business, just because of they have used the company business for their own personal needs, doesn't mean that it should enter the books. When I say enter the books, it's going to be in the books, but it's going to be like you're going to recognize it like a liability or a receivable from those individuals, not like you expense it. So you need to understand such transactions with them. So it's good to know those individuals so that when you see transactions that relate to them, you know what to do about them, right? So I said that it's not just knowing them indirectly. At times they may own businesses. So you need to know the transactions that relate to them and their businesses so that you know how to treat them. So it's good to have that list because that list will go a long way in helping you in analyzing the bank statement. So typically, when you are approached with the scenario of analyzing the bank statement, don't go deep and just try to analyze the bank. No. Understand the business. Ask questions around this list of requirements, right? And provide that list and share with them, right? Now, another thing I said was get a list of the assets. Typically, most times for most businesses that are just starting up, they may not have a lot of assets. So even if the business cannot provide a list for you, you can walk up to the business premises and walk around. Take note of all the assets. Write them, provide a list, as like a physical verification of yourself. Write the name of the assets, the brand, if possible, right? If more than one was gotten, write the quantity, right? Also get maybe the location within the office where it's located. That way, when you draw that list, or when you come up with a list like that, that you have the name of the asset, proper description, the brand of what that asset relates to. You get the quantity you've seen and the location within the office premises where you saw it. It will help you a lot, right? Then if, for example, you are interacting with people within that space, right? There's a possibility that you can get possibly the vendor that supplied that particular asset. So you can relate particular assets to the vendor, right? So when you have that, it also will help you a long way, right? Because at the end of the day, it will help you provide a complete list of records. Now, the next step will now be, obviously, ask for a bank statement. That's what we're trying to do here, analyze the bank statement. So obviously, you need to ask for the bank statement. But typically, what I tell people is that ask them for the bank statement from inception. So for example, if they give you a bank statement and you see an opening balance, an amount, tell them, please, you need the bank statement that has where it's starting from zero, right? Because it tells you that there are transactions before there. So you want the complete set of transactions. Don't forget, we're looking at a startup. So we want to be able to see all transactions from the very beginning. Now, typically, if you're not careful, they'll give you PDF. It's not like you're not converting PDF to Excel, right? There are softwares online that can help you do that. But the problem about that is that most times when they convert it, the data may be distorted, may not be in the format you want it. So typically, you need to push to get bank statement in Excel. The bank statement in Excel helps you, makes your life easy. It may still require some level of formatting, but makes your life easy to a large extent, right? So it's important getting Excel, right? And don't forget, have a good understanding of all the bank accounts the business owns. Have that discussion. Let them provide a list of all the bank accounts and get bank statement for all of them. Because when you miss one bank account, you are missing transactions that are, of course, for the business that can make you miss the completeness of the books, right? Now, typically for most businesses, as much as we may believe that they have incomplete records or have no records, some of them usually have some level of record. It may just be a book where they capture transactions, how they sell, how they accrue expenses, or a book where they capture their loans and all. Discuss with them. Okay, Oga, please, you said, oh, you need an accountant. So far, how do you even track your transactions? Right? Oh, okay, I have this journal where I keep records. Oh, okay, I have this particular software that one person sold to me at one point. It captures transactions, right? When you discuss with them, it could help you, right? Because when you have those transactions, it can give you an idea about, oh, things that have taken place, what have occurred and all. So ask for some things. Like those things will guide you, help you a lot. So don't just wait, oh, okay, don't assume that, oh, because they're a startup, they have no record. No, don't assume anything. Assume zero knowledge. Ask them questions. Please, what do you have? I've met businesses where they'll tell you, oh, they have a book. And trust me, that book, it may not capture all, but it gives you some level of credit of information that you may need. Some of them may be a receipt because most people don't play with sales. So most times they may have a booklet where they actually just issue receipts. So you have the duplicate of all the sales they've made. Do you get? The owner may just want to have a job where he writes down information. Do you get? Some of them may have even paid for all these online software like Xero and application where they just capture transactions there. So ask them, you can pull reports for them and give some level of what has happened in the business. So like I said, also very important, have a short interview with the business owner. But before you have the interview with the business owner, right, it's good to do your own level of research so that you don't look like you don't know what you're doing. So when you're asking him a question, he sees that this guy has a good understanding of what this thing entails, right? So that you're not just asking him regular question. So for example, imagine you're walking up to an NGO and you're asking them about how they generate revenue. Obviously, an NGO does not generate revenue. You usually get money from grants. Do you get? So you walk up to a bakery business and you're asking them, what kind of services do they do? That would be weird. A bakery business, basically, most times they bake, they sell things like bread and pastries and all. So you need to be asking specific questions like that. If possible, the good thing is that a lot of businesses are most likely have social media accounts or they have the website. Do you get? It's possible they have a booklet that describes their business, right? So this is very specific, so that when you're interacting with such a person, the person understands that, oh, this person has an understanding of my business, right? So I don't know if anybody has any question at this point, or we should just fire on. Any question? Yeah. So as much as possible, I don't want this thing to be one way, right? Any question?
Hello. Hello. Hello, are you there?
Yes, I hear you. Listen to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. In classification of the asset, do we need to state the status, whether functional, whether the asset is functioning or not?
So it's not a bad idea to actually include that, right? So that as much as possible, just like they've identified the asset, you can say that, oh, this asset is no longer working. So when you see the transaction, right, you know that, oh, okay, by the time you keep the record, at the end, they may most likely impair the asset if the asset is no longer working. Do you get? So for example, the business has paid 2 million naira for this asset, right? This asset was operational from this period to this period. Obviously, you can compute depreciation. Then at the point when you know that the asset became unusable, you can impair it. So it's not a bad idea to state the status of the assets. Yeah.
I want it to be done. I have a question also.
Yeah, ask a question, please.
Okay. My question goes like this. Okay. Now, in a case where you go through the bank statement and you see huge sum, you see huge sum assigned to, referred to as miscellaneous or personal expenses. Okay. What do you do about that? Do you go ahead and inquire from the owner or whoever is responsible? Better still, so let's say the owner, and he just tells you his personal expenses, right? In the bank, where it's written clearly as miscellaneous or personal. Because I'm actually handling someone's statement and I see some disbursed out in the bank statements, and the description is miscellaneous personal expenses because she does. She carries out her disbursements from her internet banking. You get, so in cases like that, what do you do? Do you still go ahead and recognize it in the books as miscellaneous and personal expenses?
So typically what happens is, right, when you see some transactions, obviously the person knows why he kept that transaction, and the person knows why that transaction is in place. As accountants, there's nothing really we can do about it. All we can do is approach and explain to the person the implication of such transactions. That they need to understand the fact that they need to separate the business from the owner, right? And such transactions, if the tax authority pick it, they can see it as a form of, or what's called it, emolument to the person, and as a result, they will say, oh, how come payee and all that, or withholding tax and all. So you need to explain to the person the implication. Yeah. So the best you can do is that most times, hold on. You ask your question, no worry. So as much as when that transaction, right, you know that, oh, it's for the business owner. Typically, what people do is that they have what you call a director's account, or so that such transactions are routed, instead of expensing them, you pass it through the person's account. So for example, I'll tell the owner of the business, see, if you want the business to settle certain transactions on your behalf, why not draw up a contract with that person, with the owner of the business, and say, oh, the person is entitled to, let's say, for example, monthly salary of 500,000, for example. Now, that 500,000 can come in. It may not be that you're paying the person at the end of every month. The person is entitled to it. So, for example, you pass it on a monthly basis, right, between your expense GL and maybe your payroll control account, right? So when the person now needs a portion of that money, as you're paying it, you're taking it through that payroll control account. So automatically, because you know that amount, that lump sum is treated as, for example, 500,000, the person's salary, you know it's clearly salary. How the person now take it, draws down on that amount, it's not a function of the person, because the business will actually take money on a month-to-month basis. So it's more structured, right? And it's clear. But because of when you see now, when the person now wants to do the approach of miscellaneous, all those personal expenses, all you best can do is route it through a director's account, right? So that you're just seeing the person is drawing down transactions with them. But the best approach is tell the person not to treat transactions for a personal use with the business, you know, model it. However, it could have tax implication for him or her, right? That's what I would suggest. However, if you want to manage it properly, structure a contract that will say, oh, the person is entitled to this amount of money on a monthly basis. So that when you just do like debit your expense GL and credit your payroll control account, right? Or the director's account, and you cannot be routing that expense through that person's account. It's just that you can be able to reconcile what's outstanding and how much the person has drawn up. So it's cleaner that way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I understand now. Thank you.
So, all right. So someone else wanted to ask
Okay,
a question.
thank you. Yes, I wanted to ask a question. Is around what you just asked earlier. Okay, I currently started a job with a bakery, but from what I have seen in their accounts, they don't even keep any accounts. That is, any sales they receive, they remove from it immediately for their expenses. And with these few weeks, I've spoken to them, but I think it's reoccurring, so I'm confused. That's why I even signed up. Because I told them to keep the description, it's in a remote area, so I think they don't have access to the bank over time. So they said it's going to be difficult for them paying it to the bank as sales. So I felt it's going to have tax implications. So I've told them, but he's repeating himself, and I don't know. And the statement to the person that deposits the money in the account used to use his name. In that situation, what can I do? Because all their transactions, and I noticed that they've been taking money. As I did for yesterday, I have something like 17,000, where we make sales of million, and I don't know what's wrong. I don't know, maybe there's something they are covering and they are not opening up.
This is what I would say, right? So it's not difficult, right? You can have a book, right, that you structurally analyze what details you need them to capture. Because the truth is that as the transaction takes place, if they have a book where they capture all transactions, right? So as they sell, they note it down. Then they have on that book, whenever they need to take money again, right? They list it. So at the end of the day, if, for example, today we made a collection of 2 million, however, we took 1.5 million, the guy deposits 500,000 at the end of the day. So automatically, you're able to see that they made a sale of 2 million. However, this 1.5 to buy additional flour. Do you get it? So what you just need to do is, typically what happens is that you have if they have a system or a laptop, right, you can design a simple Excel format. So let me quickly show you something. Right.
Also, the owner, he runs it as his personal account. That's where he picks money from.
Okay, hold on. Let's take it one by one. Yeah, sister.
Okay.
Yeah, let's take it one by one. So typically, what
I can see it.
I have dates, right? I have description, right? By the time you deal with the bakery for a while, you'll be able to identify the kind of transactions they do and classify them. So they can have categories like maybe transportation, right? For something like bakery, they'll buy flour a lot. They'll buy sugar a lot, right? I don't know that thing they buy a lot, right?
Yes.
Those are things they buy. They most likely pay salary for maybe wages for food and carry out, right? They will most likely pay for diesel, right? They will most likely do
factory workers, yes.
Yeah, they will most likely do a lot around repairs, right? Repairs. So what will happen usually is that there's a video on the YouTube channel that talks about data validation, right? So I can easily just say data.
Okay.
I come here. So let me first even create what I call a table. Let me put an amount. I can even put, so I can put a classification, whether it's revenue or expense, right? And I can put amount. Don't forget, date is critical.
Okay.
So I can create what we call a table. I press Ctrl T. My table has headers, and I press OK, and I have my classification like this. I can select this class like this. Go to data. There's what you call data validation, which is this list here, right? I click on list, select a source, and I do this, and I press OK. Now, this place I can click transportation, and click flour. So as they incur expenses on a daily basis, right? Someone tracks it and enters, oh, purchase flour. Right? You can even have who the vendor or customer, right? If you have a list of all those people, you can create it using data validation so that the person can select who he bought it from. Do you understand? And he cannot enter the amount 200,000, right? In this place, you can also have a list called like sales and expense, right? And also use data validation again. And come here, right? Data validation, click on lists, source, select sales, okay, right? So you can always select if it's an expense, and it tracks all those transactions. Who is that? Sorry, who is on?
Oh wow. Sorry. Oh wow.
Who's not on mute?
Olasukomi, please, can you mute?
Okay, sorry, it's on mute now. Okay. So I'm just trying to explain to you.
Sorry, Daily, please let me hold on, please. Hello, everyone. Please, when want to ask a question, please let's make use of the raise your hand function so that it's orderly and we can pick it one at a time and attend to everyone that has a question. Okay.
All right, thank you, Jide, for that. So like I said, so by the time you have this analysis here, right, you can get them to fill it on a daily basis and send it to you via email. So that at the end of the day, the amount on a daily basis, right, they have the net amount which will now be amount deposited in bank, right? So deposit, even if you put his name, not a problem. At the end of the day, just say deposit, you can just put the description, deposit for the day of, end of day of 21st or 13th of February, bam. So that this report and that stuff, they will always tally. And as much as it stands as a control for you. Do you get? Does that make sense?
Okay, but the description is not showing in the bank. Yes, it is, but description for every day is not showing in the bank. It will not align.
So the thing is that so now you need to now know how to liaise with the banker, right?
The money deposited in the bank, that's what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying. So I'm saying,
okay.
So this is what you do, right? First, in every deposit,
Please unmute, speaker, unmute.
Unmute me. Okay, so now, so hold on, guys. Okay, someone muted me. I don't know who muted. So what I'm saying in essence is that you just need to tell them, right?
It's not different.
Can we everybody be on mute, please? It's not effective for us because we're now trying to coordinate, trying to mute people. Funnily, let's see who is not on mute now. Jide, please, can you help me mute who is not on mute, please? I don't know. It's taking much of my time trying to find out who is on mute and who is on mute, please.
Okay, all right.
I cannot. Okay. So what I'm now saying in essence is that you just need to identify how best to. So, for example, put a description on the payment slip, and then to tell the teller to ensure that they put such transactions. Or you to make use of agents like OPay and all. When you're make them understand that they'll do that. At that transaction or description point of view, it's how you coordinate with the people doing the deposit and how they interact with whoever is doing that thing on their behalf. Do you understand? But if, for example, they tell you, for example, they send you a snapshot, thank God for WhatsApp, they send you a snapshot of the teller, oh, they made deposit of this amount, and you see deposit through WhatsApp through you, and you have the bank where you can transact, oh, the dates, deposit slip dates, and the inflow dates, you can always match them, and now we need to treat such transaction. For me, I think that would be able to resolve it. If you are still having challenges, we can discuss that outside of this webinar. Yeah? Fakunda, does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right, fantastic.
In fact, I can always talk to you outside.
Yes,
so
you
don't let me
can.
disturb you.
All right, no problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So is there any other person who has any other question, please?
Please use the raise your hand function.
Okay. In the absence of none, right?
So Dele, if you don't see any raised hands in 2 minutes, just go ahead.
All right, no problem. So going back to this information list, right? I think we've done justice to the information request list, right? Now, typically when you're analyzing the bank statement, the place I like the most, typically if you look at any bank transaction or any bank statement, for every time you make a payment, there must be a bank charge. For every time you receive an inflow, most likely there's a bank charge, right? So the easiest one to analyze is the bank charges. Very easy. Most times, the nomenclature of bank charges don't usually change significantly. So things like you request for a token, there's a token charge for it. You get a checkbook charges. You do normal transfer, SMS charge. So usually when you follow, if you look at the bank statement, you can easily identify transaction linked to bank charges. You have your account maintenance, usually it's at the end of every month. So by the time you analyze it, typically most SMS charges or payments, usually the amounts are usually around the same amount. For example, your stamp duty is 15 naira wherever you like from it. Some banks try to do it that they do it at the end of the day, they'll charge you for all the stamp duty for all transactions you pay. Some of them, they'll do ask on every transaction occurs, right? For transfer, before it was 2.5, but now it's 3.75 thereabouts because of the 7.5 VAT. So you can easily identify it. And I know usually a lot. So I try to look at isolate the bank charges there by amount. So you look at all transactions that are outflow that are less than 1,000 naira. You'll be able to identify most of the bank charges, except account maintenance charges, which could be a lot because that one is per mil. So you could go as high as 150,000, depending on the nature of the business, right? So now I tell people that you cannot know everything all in the bank statement. So don't be a Jackie Chan. The owner of the business know their bank statement better than you. You're just coming in for the first time. You can identify some things of your own. However, when you are in doubt, when you see a transaction, don't assume that you know what the transaction relates to. Ask the business owner. If the business owner does not know, you need to now give him some level of insight, right? Oh, was this person, it took place on this day, it was an inflow. It had this narration in it, right? If it doesn't give you the response, it may need to take time, right? Typically, what I tell people most times is that because at the end you're going to post the transaction in the bank, I'd rather choose a suspense GL that will be mapped to my bank account or my cash and bank to house reconciling item than post it anywhere else. So what I do is that I ensure that all transactions that I'm not going to fully allocate or know what they relate to, I put them in a particular GL that is mapped to my bank, but I know that they are reconciling item. But when you get to that place, we'll cross that bridge. Now, it may not necessarily be the business owner you need to interact with. It may be someone who is either involved with collections or payment. So for example, some businesses have what you call a sales agent. Those sales agents are responsible for collecting money from various customers. Now, those agents, because of they know their customers, if you tell them about transactions, they would know those transactions, who they relate to, right? So at times, it may not be the business owner you need to relate with. You need to know those that are involved with these transactions. Those are the kind of people that can give you the proper insights into proper treating such transactions. Are you with me? So also for payment, if you know people that are involved one way or the other in operations, so those that are involved in either buying raw materials or buying goods or whatever, those are the kind of people you interact with. When you try to see transaction, oh, okay, they paid this, they know. Some businesses are very cash driven. So most times you may see transactions in the name of employees. So, oh, they pay this money to this employee because why? The kind of things they buy are not things they pay vendor directly. They need someone to go to the market. Imagine if you go to someone that host events, right? Event planning. Most times, or they buy foods or they do catering businesses, they will need to go to the local markets to go and shop for those things. So what you see is money they give to a particular employee. So in such scenarios, what would happen is that they give money to employees. However, there's a list that guides them in terms of what they go and buy for the market. So you need to know how much was given to that employee. Meanwhile, you will have a list that will guide the employee in buying materials from the market. Do you get? So you need to know such things, right? Now, like I said, if the bank statement is over 5 years, my brother, sorry, I don't envy you. Because the older the transactions, the more difficult it is for you to actually treat such transactions. So most times what I tell people is that you will not most likely be able to treat all the transactions at once. At times, people that have been involved in bank statement analysis can tell you that the analysis of that bank statement can go as much as 4 months, 5 months, even a year. However, when you have transactions, like I said, isolate them, unreconciled balances, have them, allocate them around bank, but ensure that you can differentiate between the one that has the proper bank account and the transactions untreated or unreconciled. With time, clarity will come to certain transactions, right? At some point, the business will have to make a call and decide, oh, this reconciling item that we have here, how are we treating what's left? You may end up deciding to write them off, as the case may be. However, the business as a whole will now come together to decide, depending on the net impact of the total transactions. Do you get? Because whether I like it or not, there's some level of misstatement that may come as a result of it. However, you cannot carry that same for it to the eternity, right? But at the end of the day, the goal is that your bank, you need to reconcile. The bank, whatever is in bank is reality. That's the amount that exists in the bank. So you need to come up with that. Inflows most times usually don't give problems, except depending on the nature of the business you're dealing with, right? Because typically in most businesses, inflows may not be a lot. You make more payments than you receive money, right? And people actually, because of inflows usually relate to sales most times, people are actually very detailed about their sales. Do you get? Their outflows, they may not really cater, they may not do it as they like. So you need to take note, and your biggest worry is usually your outflows. At this point, any question? Like Jide said, you can make use of the raising hand function. Any question? Okay, let me see chat room. Go on, please. Okay. So in the absence of no question, I'll move on to the next section. Okay, so I listed things. Okay, okay. There was a question here. I think I missed out that question. So test of knowledge. So now to test how well we've been paying attention to the class, and let's see how much we know of the class. Okay, someone said I should ask you at the end of the class. So this is a scenario where we're asking questions, things to look out for scenario. You are employed as a consultant to create the first set of account for a micro lending business where SMEs get small loans to run their businesses. What are the information you would request to start with? And what are the things you think are critical to such business? I don't know. So this is a question for the audience. Anybody? I'm not answering this question. I want someone to attempt it and let's see what the person can make out of it. Right. So we're not trying to judge anybody. This is a place where we've come to all learn and share and learn among ourselves. So this is a question for anybody.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Yes, I can. Okay.
Hi.
Okay. In response to the question, my answer goes like this. Questions or information we need to request for in preparation to attend to a bank statement are the list of customers, vendors, employees, directors, shareholders, and also places or persons assets are purchased from. So we are guided, also the person is guided when he's with a bank statement and he or she gets a better understanding when he sees certain transactions and description. Not only that, in respect to the list I have earlier mentioned, this is also to guide the person so that when he sees certain sum being moved from debit to credit or however it is, he or she will understand. And also names. When he sees certain names, he is able to allocate and assign the names appropriately.
Sorry, I didn't get your name. I think people should mention their name whenever they're asking a question. Did you hear me? I said I didn't get your name. I don't know. I said people should be maybe mentioning their names when they're answering questions so that you get to know those answering questions. Okay, she can't unmute. Okay, Jide, can you unmute Oppo A53, please?
Okay. All right, you can go ahead now.
Okay, my name is Angela.
Okay.
Oh, Angela.
My name is Angela.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, nice to hear from you, Angela.
All right, thank you, Angela.
Okay, so any other person wants to
Okay,
make an
Zeb
attempt?
Agu also has a question.
Okay, Zeb Agu, can you unmute her?
Zeb Agu, yeah.
Okay, Agu, okay, let's hear from you.
Zeb, you can go ahead.
Okay. I said, looking at the specific business of this organization, they are a lending institution. So the first thing I should look out for, one of the things I should look out for is the list of their debtors. That's the people they lent money to.
Okay.
Again, I will also look out for who are the owners of the business and how is the business financed.
Okay.
And then what other info? I'm looking at the bullet points. What are the information you would? Okay, I think on that. What are other things that are critical? Then other things that may be critical would be the aging of their debts. To know which of the debts are good, those that are getting critical, and those that are already bad. So those are some of the specific things I'll look out for because of the nature of their business.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot, Zera. Any other thing?
Yes. David, please go ahead, David. David, Suzanne. Can you hear me? David.
Maybe he's on mute. Aisha is not on mute.
Okay. It's been unmuted. David.
Okay, in the absence of none, right? So someone said, how does the aging of debts play a critical role? Right, it's important, but I will explain everything in whole. So now, like I said, it's critical to understand the business, right? So ask yourself, how does a mending institution generate revenue? Generate revenue because you basically take cash from one place where it's in excess to where it's in shortfall, right? So the question I ask myself now is that, so critical is that, whether I like it or not, one thing
of your business, you produce
can someone mute? Julie, please, can you mute the lady, please? So you're moving funding from where it's excess to where it's a shortfall, right? So the idea now is that for a micro institution, you need to understand how they generate revenue. Generate revenue because they give out loans, right? So key, one thing that is critical is their loan. Existing loans and loans have been fully paid off, right? Because trust me, when they give out the loan, it's going to be a disbursement from the bank statement. When people repay loan, it's going to be an inflow, right? So unlike the other places, apart from just having customers list and all, it's good to also know what are the loans that are currently running. Because whether you like it or not, you know the fact that it's a startup, trust me, they will still need to track loans. Otherwise, how they do their collections, there will be a report as soon as emerging. So historically, a report that gives you all the loans that have been disbursed and loans that are currently running that have not been fully paid off. So it's very critical information, right? Because that is the bedrock of the business. In short, that's the reason why they're in business. So typically, like other information we listed before, get the list of customers, get the list of vendors, get their employees, their shareholders. Very important. Get the list of assets they own and all. Very good. Also, don't forget that for a lending institution, as much as they are giving out loans, they themselves would have gotten a form of some of funding, either in form of equity or debt, which they have in excess, where they're moving from where it's in surplus to where they're shortfall, right? So they themselves will have people they owe, either other banks, individuals, investors, and all. So it's good to also know who those lists are and how much they owe them, right? So that's critical. So that you know appropriately when you see inflows, you can match to, oh, this list I'm seeing, you can reconcile the inflows I'm seeing that, oh, this person, Lagbaja gave us this money, 20 million. Oh, I saw an inflow of 5 million, 10 million. That is the 20 million. I can marry them, right? So it's important to be able to see that correlation. So let me go to the next slide. So here, someone said, what's about the aging? So we said it's a startup, but don't forget, we did not define how long the business has been in existence. It's possible they started the business last year and they have a loan that has been in existence from the beginning and investors are not repaid. So it may be good to know what loans are long outstanding. It helps you tell you, oh, the collectibility, and you can advise management appropriately, right? It just helps you tell you, oh, there's a possibility that the loan they need to impair and all. That's what the aging of the loan will help you do. Okay, so like I said, list of bank statements, list of SME customers, list of vendors, list of investors, list of running loans as at the time or cutoff date, list of loans issued from inception to date, list of employees and their salary, report to track performance. So possibly they have a report in tracking their loans. Please, can you help us mute that person? Is it on there? Julie, please, can you help us mute that person?
Okay, all right.
All right, thank you. Okay, so help track performance. So typically, no matter how bad it is, either someone within the sales team would have a report that talks about their tracking their performance. That will tell you like aging of the loan. Oh, they give out this loan has, the person is in default, has not paid. It gives you an idea, right?
Dele Ademola Adegoke has a question.
Okay, hi Ademola Adegoke.
Thank you very much, Dele. So far, I would have loved to participate in the question session, but the screen you shared, I can't see it very well. It's not fitting into the screen. That is why I couldn't participate. I want to know if it's from my own end or if it's a general issue.
Okay, I don't know. Is anybody
Yes,
having
it's
an
not
issue with?
fitting. I can't see it. I can't see the scenario. I can't see it at all.
Okay.
It didn't fit the screen.
Okay, is any other
It's
person
not
having the same
fitting.
issue?
It's not
Did you have
fitting.
the
Now
same
it's
issue?
fitting. Now it's fitting. It's okay now.
Zeb says the screen is okay. So Ademola, maybe you can try to
He said it's
change the
fitting
view.
now. He said it's fitting now.
But now it has changed again. It has changed again. You are making a recommendation. Jide, please go ahead.
Yes, maybe you change the view to
Okay.
landscape view as opposed maybe portrait.
Landscape.
Okay. Is it fine now? Maybe it's the chat that's coming up. Is it okay now?
It's okay like this. It's okay this way.
All right, no
This
problem.
way, right here.
All right, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, so someone also
Okay.
mentioned, so
Yeah,
the
go
thing,
ahead.
so I'll go back, I'll take a step backward. So someone mentioned, which is also
It's okay
important,
now.
is
Thank
one
you.
thing to know the list of the loans. It's also critical that we also know the terms governing those loans, either the ones that the company has received themselves or the ones they've issued out. Because why are we saying those agreements are critical? The agreement, the term sheet will tell you the interest that will be earned on such facilities, right? It will tell you the fees on such facilities if they exist. So those things are also important. I did not talk about those parts because I was just talking about the analysis of the bank. However, for the purpose of revenue recognition, which is your interest income, your fees on the loan, and your interest expense, the agreement for all the loans that were disbursed are also critical. So the documentation that tells you the terms of those loans, the interest rates, the loan tenure, the frequency of repayment, right? And the fees on the loan, right? In terms of management fees and or the rates applicable when the loan was disbursed. Because, for example, you can see an agreement whereby the loan is said 20 million. However, in the bank statement, we see 19.5 million, meaning that we disbursed 19.5 because we deducted our fees upfront. Do you get? But you know that in real sense, the loan to that individual is actually 20 million. So hope that brings to perspective. Tunde, thanks for your contribution. Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay, all right. So this is another scenario. You're employed at an account as a consultant to create the first set of accounts for a manufacturing company into the production of PET bottles. What are the information you would request for to start it? And what are the things you think are critical to such a business? So this is another question that I'm throwing out. Any question from the audience?
Nobody yet.
Nobody yet. Okay. So in the absence of
Levi, do you want to try? I'm trying to call names.
Check that you don't have anybody in the spectator or in the waiting list, please.
Okay. Ademola Adegoke, do you want to try?
No, thank you.
Why is it that nobody wants to try now? Why not? I'm feeling bad.
They are scared.
No, they're not scared. I think they're hoping that other people contribute and they're able to learn from them. But trust me, everybody's experienced one way or the other. We're faced with such new. Esther Fakunda.
Okay. I have Orefu Daniel who wants to try.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Okay, please go ahead. Daniel.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes.
All right. The question says consultants to create the first set of account for a manufacturing company into production of PET bottle. Information you would request for to start with. For me, as the consultant, or as you've given on the, I will will ask for information about owners of the business, the nature of the business, which is, and also I will ask for how they make their purchases, the list of their vendors, the list of their inventories, receivables, the aging of their payables, and also I will ask how they track their revenues and their purchases. I'll ask for a list of their bank statements, how many bank statements they keep. Then if it requires me working matters, I'll also ask for previous tax completion. If they don't have, I'll have to liaise with maybe a previous use and get some information from. I think those are the basic things I request.
Okay, all right. Thanks for making the attempt, right? So thanks for the attempt, right? Is there another person want to make an attempt? Okay, in the absence of none, right? So critical for us is that we understand that this is a startup, and the idea is we're trying to address questions around analysis of the bank statement. So I ask myself, like I typically ask me, what are they involved in, right? They are a manufacturing company. One critical thing that you understand about manufacturing is that they are usually heavy on capex, right? So it means that they will usually have investment in capital expenditure, much as regards to plant and machinery, and possibly you will have a factory, right? Because of that, critical that we look at a manufacturing company will be their asset list. Critical again that will be for me is their inventory. Now, there's a possibility that they may not have proper records, but at least they may have done one or two stock count at one point or the other. So the most recent stock counts they've done, right? So I get the list of their inventory. Now I can be asking for generic information such as their customer list, the list of their vendors, their employee list, right? All the bank accounts they own and the bank statements from inception to the date of the cutoff we are looking at. A list of the raw material they usually use, things they buy and all. That will help me, right? So when I put that together, by the time I'm analyzing the bank statement, all that, bringing all that into perspective will help me, right? So I can also be considering how their payment terms, their customers, how they settle. It may be, so for example, because of some businesses, because I'm doing a manufacturing company, I can supply 10 units of an item. Some customers, what they know how to do is that they will pay you on account. They don't want to, they will not tell you that settling this invoice, they'll settle you in bulk. For me, when there's some people that will settle you and pay you on specific invoices, tell you, I'm settling on invoice ABC, 10 million naira, and I've deducted withholding tax, right? Because that's key when you're reconciling your bank. Because when you're allocating payment, you won't be able to allocate payment to certain invoices. Do you understand? So it's possible they have a list of all the sales they made in the period. So any reports they should track their performance of the business. Get that, do you get? Because they're dealing with incomplete record. But let's bear in mind that we're looking at a startup that has no records, right? So there are certain things that you most likely ask for if the business is more structured or has more information. Yeah?
Yeah, Dele Abdul Wahid Idiagbon has his hands raised.
Okay. Okay, I'll answer him just shortly. So Raji said, job well done, accounting yard. Kudos to you guys. I appreciate if you can help us with a template along with a guide on how to analyze the PDF bank statements converted to Excel by following all the stated steps on this very training. Thank you for this opportunity. So PDF is not different from how we analyze this. The only difference is that there are sources online. So typically what I tell people is, okay, let me escape this, for example. Can you help us mute the person, please? Yeah. So for example, if I go online, PDF to Excel, there are converters. So if you check online, if you go, you will see them. I'll help you convert it. The only difference now is that you will now be cleaning it and formatting the Excel. Now, typically, the Excel part of it, right? That's when the Excel part of it, that's ability to apply Excel, is another phase, right? Because obviously, if you don't have good knowledge in Excel, you may struggle in some elements. However, the kind of Excel functions or features you need are not the complex one. Yeah, someone even said, I love PDF.com is suitable. Fantastic. So someone has recommended one to convert PDF to Excel. Fantastic. Because trust me, there are a lot of them, but there's some that will just scatter it for you. There's some that will divide it into they'll turn each page to a sheet in the Excel file. But some will just convert it straight. Someone has recommended one, which is I love PDF.com. Fantastic. But be careful. Some people are always very careful in terms of what's called it. Sensitivity of information. So you also need to be careful about how that works. Just be careful. Let me just bring that to your attention, because obviously you don't know what your data will be used for. So be careful where and what platform you use. So what was I saying? Chai, I can't remember the last thing I said again. Anyways.
Abdulwahid has a question.
Okay, Abdulwahid, please.
Please go ahead, Abdulwahid.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible now. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you, Wahid. Go ahead.
I don't know if my question is within the purview of this class. If you're looking to bank statement, I think that I want to ask, what are those things to look for to analyze the trend, like profitability trend or change in profitability, especially in 2-year financial statement? I hope my question is clear now.
Okay, so Abdullah, can you do us a favor? Can you send a message over chat? Your voice is not too clear. So I need to say something about analysis of bank statement or profitability. But can you send it as a message on the chat so we can get exactly what the question is? All right, we'll be waiting for you with style, but we'll move on. So listings of items that you should take note of: the bank statement, list of customers, list of vendors and what they supply, list of investors, this could be shareholders and all, list of assets, much like production equipment, right? Because they're critical to the business, right? List of inventory. So what exactly they have as inventory, right? And a list of their last stock count. List of their last set of purchases. Why I usually ask for a list of last set of purchases is that if, for example, the business has not really doesn't have an inventory, doesn't have a report of inventory, right? By the time you count the stock, you get quantity, you need prices. So by the time you get the list of recent purchases, you can be able to allocate their price of the most recent item they bought to the price of the quantities you've counted. And that will be the best way to get the value of inventory that the business will be carrying, right? So if the business has a loan issue and general, as the case may be, if they have. Okay. Sorry, asking. So Abdulwahid, I've seen your question, but when you talk about analysis of profitability and trends, that is it's very generic. It can, from one business to the other, what you look at would be different. So first, what I will ask you, if you ask me such a question, is ask, what's the nature of business? How do business generate revenue? Do you get? If it's a business that has, for example, that sell goods, I'll be looking at all the various units of products they sell. And I can apply a principle called Pareto, which is 80-20 principle. What are those things that generate 80% of the revenue? And I can identify what is the profitability of those items. So most times for people that are into buying and selling, what drives profitability is one, how many units have they sold, right? What is the selling price vis-a-vis what's the cost price? What's my gross profit margin on each product? Do you get? So it's easier to analyze it on volume and on the margin. So I look at volume and I look at margin and I look at the various SKUs that the business is involved in. However, don't forget, this is for a business that's into buying and selling. For a consulting business, which is service, is different. For a financial institution, which is into borrowings, is different. So such profitability and trend analysis is a function of the line of business. Do you get? So in telco, for example, what I'll be focusing on will be most likely around their customer base and what we call APA, average revenue per account, which is how profitable or how much sales do you make on a subscriber basis. Do you get? So that question is more specific to the line of business. Then you'll be able to identify what are those things that are driving that business, what we call key performance indicator. When I identify the KPIs, then I analyze it on those KPIs and I look at it on each year, compare the two of them based on those individual KPIs of that business. I don't know if I've answered your question. So typically, next step, right, in when you know what to do, right, is to create a structure. So like you saw me do when I was raising something linked to Esther, I tried to create what I call a data validation. Now, when I get all those lists, I list them on my Excel and I now create a structure of the bank statement, right? I put some level of structure. So for example, I get the list of all revenue, list of all possible classes of expenses that the business can incur. I get the list of their customers, you get a list of vendors, list of employees, list of shareholders. Then I create what you call a naming convention, right? So what do I mean? Let me escape. To my Excel again, right? So I have a list of people, customers. Let me see if I have a list of names I can use. Okay, I don't think I have. Let me see if I can see. Many were called, but few were chosen. I'm surprised I just 60. Just like the number of people that showed interest. Anyways, many were called, but few were chosen. So let's just randomly just pick some people here. Right, so I have them here. So typically, let's assume that this set of people are vendors, just for the sake of this class. Let's assume these people are vendors. Let's assume these are customers. And then let's assume these are employees. Right? So typically what I normally do is that I create a structure that will make me know, by the time I just even see it, I know that, oh, this person is an employee or a vendor. I create a structure. So typically what I do is maybe a V, I can do something like, I can put a V that will start a V with a colon. Or let me just say V, yeah, maybe V with a colon. Right? And I can do it like this. So that I cannot say, oh, I can combine this with the person's name. Right? So the moment I see the person, I know that person is a vendor. I can do something similar for customer control. See, you do this, right? Okay, so I have a list of customers. I have a list like that. Then I have employees. I have the list here. Now, with this, I can carry all this. Let's say I take it to this sheet, for example, and I paste it here. I can now create like maybe spaces in between the two of them. Shift it down. Right, create a space, shift it down. No, Control Z, Control Shift plus, Shift cells down. I have it like this. So now what I'm not doing is here, I create the data validation. I'm just using these sheets, but I'll explain to you in bank statement analysis how to use it. Data validation, list, source, and I select it down like this. Right, and I press OK. Now that way, I know that if I see a V, I'm dealing with vendor. Do you get? If I see a C, I know I'm dealing with customer. And I see an E, I know I'm dealing with employee. The idea is that, trust me, I'm not a magician. I may not remember that this person's name is an employee. But when I see E, I know, oh, this transaction relates to an employee. So that way, I've created a structure so that at any point when I'm analyzing the bank, as I put such structures in place, when I go back in time, even if I come back 2 weeks or 3 weeks later on, I can easily tell, oh, this person is a vendor. That's why I put it this way. Do you get? And it helps in my analysis of the bank statement. So let me go back here. Continue from current slide. So like I said, I'll do it for employees, customers, and all. See the example here. Customer, vendor, maybe hyphen, employee, EI, shareholder, investor, Israel. So that's the kind of structure I'm talking about. So you put that structure in place, it makes the classification of transaction easily. The same principle that applies to how you done customers. I've also said for nature of transaction. So by the time you're dealing with the business, you will identify things that they incur, cost they incur. So for example, a business is into have raw material. You can even now do raw material colon flour, raw material colon sugar, raw material colon this. You can have rent, you can have salary, you can have repair and maintenance. Right? What else? You can have transportation. You can have office expense. You can have meal. You can have entertainment. So you have all the possible categories you think are the nature of expenses the business incur because you've discussed with the owner of the business. You identify the kind of transactions the business is involved in, right? And that way, like we did it here, we'll do something similar, classification of transactions. And when you're analyzing the bank statement, you're already classifying it, right? And that's that phase, that's what we're talking about here. Now, sorry. Now we've done that. So now in this place, I'm not telling you the truth. If you have a bank statement, typically you have all the transactions, right? You have them listed here. Or you've gotten the bank statement, you've downloaded it. Usually I usually create additional columns to the right. Those columns is where I have my amount, the nature of the transaction, the person that is involved in the transaction, whether a customer, a vendor, then a remark column. So at the point you're analyzing the bank statement, there's a high probability that some of the transactions, you would not know what they relate to. But you can put a remark so that later on, when you go back to that bank statement analysis, that remark will remind you why you highlighted a particular transaction. I put amount here because, for example, if you look at it, some bank statements, they will come and they'll put type D or C, meaning that when it's a debit or a credit, they'll put a D or C. So what I try to do is that I try to assign the appropriate sign to that transaction, whether it's an inflow or outflow. So for example, an outflow, I put a minus sign. It's an inflow, I put a positive sign. So that's why I put it here. So I put the amount using like an if function to put in the appropriate category, right? Like I explained, using data validation, you've already selected this column, and based on that structured analysis of how the expense or revenue should be classified, you've already put it, you listed all of them, and you put that data validation to handle it here. Here, using data validation, you already have a list of customers and vendors. So you can allocate transactions to specific people and you allocate them. Then, based as you are going on, you may identify other attributes you may want to include. And you can use data validation to put them appropriately into those classes. So for example, a loan, people that are dealing with loan, it's possible that those loans, as you disburse them, they have unique references. So you put those references, right? It's possible that you have invoice references. This transaction that they paid for, you have the invoice it relates to. You can put a column called invoice reference. Do you get? So you can say, oh, this particular transaction relates to this particular invoice or relates to this particular invoice you're settling, right? So you can add additional columns. So because I have these 4 columns doesn't mean that is all. You can have more. Let me check the charts. Okay, Joy, can you confirm if you can see now? Can you help us mute the person? I don't know why people can't see you, but I don't know. Jide, can you see the screen clearly? Is any other person having issues with seeing the screen?
Yes, I can see the screen clearly.
Okay, all right. So Joy and whoever is not seeing the screen clearly at the moment, we're going to upload the video, the final video to YouTube, right? So every other person can still go ahead to view it. I would share the link for the YouTube channel now. So it's easy. Okay, a lot of people can see it clearly. But I'll share the link of the YouTube channel so that everybody can see, or when you send the email, we'll send it via email to everybody so that they can see it. Okay, all right, so no problem. So every other people can see it. So like I said, by the time you have the bank statement, right, you've cleaned it up, it's in this format, you have the structure of the classification. This doesn't mean that these are all the classifications you can make use of. There may be more, right? So you put the classifications that come as a result of when you're analyzing it, right? So that way, by the time you're done, by the time you finish analyzing it, you can use a pivot to get the final output of what you're expecting, right? So let me go to the next step. So like I said, questions to ask yourself. You need to understand that you cannot do without help of someone who is involved in the business from day to day, like I said. So when you've done this analysis, you will most likely identify things that require clarification with the client. So you need to isolate your transactions and share with them, have a meeting with them, discuss with them. They require clarity. So like, for example, some people have POS transactions. Some people maybe using things like a Flutterwave or a Paystack. When you sort platforms, they remit money in bulk. So you may not see a customer name, you may see Paystack or you see Flutterwave. So you may need a statement from those platforms to identify, oh, this particular transaction are coming from specific people, right? So such things may come up. Like I said, you may need employee their salaries, their details, so that you can know that, oh, this transaction is for salary, this transaction. Sometimes some people may not pay their salaries once, you may split it. So by the time you discuss with them, when you see transactions, you say, oh, this transaction linked to salary, because you can see it linked to employees. Do you get? Yeah, you can see things like office space and other costs incurred and all. Yeah? Yeah. So you may need to get contract internet with suppliers and the period it covers. So at times you may see transactions that are paid. So for example, you may see for a legal or IT or internet, some may pay for a long period. So because you're seeing that transaction doesn't mean that that thing needs to be expensed at once. That transaction may be for a period of time. So you need to understand such transactions and get maybe a contract or invoice that supports transactions and know how to treat them. So you didn't just expense a transaction that is meant for cover for more than 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, right? So that's the end, right? And this way, and then by the time you're done, you'll be able to consolidate your results and analyze using a pivot, right? So like I said, it comes to the end of this session. We'll most likely just do a simple example that involves data next week Saturday by the same time, right? So I don't know if anybody has any question. We hope, and if you feel that this training has added value in terms of it has met your expectation, and if it has not, you can let us know so we can know how we can add to the concluding class next week, Saturday. So any question, people?
Yes, Daily, there's a hand raised.
Okay, please.
APPO A53.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for the lecture training so far. My question is not actually a question, I would say it's a request. I have learned extremely largely from this, from what you've been teaching for the past 2 hours. I don't know if we should look forward to getting slides on it, because I will need to, because most things most things that really impacted were things you were saying, you get. So it wasn't, even if I had to be writing them down, I needed to also pay attention to what you were saying because it carried a lot of weight. So I don't know if you have intentions of sharing the slide, and even if you do, is it after the next week Saturday lecture training we should expect it, or how is it going to be? Because it really has been impactful.
Okay, so I will tell you that I'll send it now. Immediately after this, so I'll just PDF it and send it via email to everybody, right? So if you are one of those that registered, that means when I send the email, you'll get it, right? If you did not register, maybe you got a link from a friend, you can just send an email to Actiad. I'll send a chat now. Just send an email to Actiad at gmail.com. Yeah, Actiad at Gmail. Is it Actiad or account? I think it's Actiad, yeah. Jerry, can you help me confirm that? It's Actiad. So
it's Actiad.
Yeah, you can send that, right? So if another thing is that if you feel that this was very informative, depending on how interested you are, we have what we call the Mini Accounting Academy. The Mini Accounting Academy would cover more than just this, right? It goes for a token of just 5,000 naira. It covers end to end a lot of other things apart from just this, right? So it's going to cover from basic. You, as an accountant, you are faced with an accounting function. You are there for the first time, setting up your chart of accounts, posting entries for all items. Then, in terms of handling bank reconciliation, prepayment, fixed asset depreciation, preparing the management account, right? It's going to start 3rd of April. It's going to last for 8 days, right? And it's just for 5,000. Just for 5,000. It's going to be online, right? Zoom, like we have now. And we had the last one last year, MME 1. If maybe you think that, you cannot wait for MME 2, which is 3rd of April, you can pay for the old lecture, right? And that's it.
So, Dele, Zeb and Raji, so like Dele said earlier, there will be another session same time next week, Saturday, where there will be the practical demonstration on Excel of what was explained today. So I hope that answers your questions and, eases your concerns.
So someone asked a question about data validation and Vlookup, right? So one thing I'm very sure of is that if you go to the YouTube channel, there's a particular video dedicated to data validation alone. Right, so let me just go there now.
Yeah, if you can share the link.
Yeah, let me just get to YouTube now. So I can tell you that the YouTube channel has so much that people underestimate it. But let me get the link for the data validation. So this is the video on Vlookup. This is the video on data validation. Yeah.
Bolanle, details on how to participate in the academy has been going on and will also be shared via email if you registered for this session.
I can
and
share.
another email.
I think I have. Let me see. I can. Let me see. Let me see if I can get the link for the MMA. Okay. Yeah. So this is the link for the MMA. Just in case you can either pay directly with this, or you can do. Let me see if I have the accounting details.
So Dele, someone said he has almost all the videos, but they are very short and not well detailed. So let's hold on to that.
Almost all the videos.
All our videos. Yeah, but they are very short and not very detailed. So let's review that.
So let me. I would like to hear from the person. Raji, can you talk? I would like to hear your voice.
Okay, let me unmute Raji.
That's a feedback that we need to take on, and we can take that feedback now.
Raji, go ahead, please. Raji, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm one of your fans. I can't joke with accounting here, sincerely speaking. I've been having a lot of benefit from you guys. From day one, I got your link from the friend.
Okay.
So basically, what I'm trying to drive at is that some of the videos on YouTube, even I subscribe, immediately you drop any of them, I download and keep it in a file. So what I'm saying is that some of them, I don't know how I can get in touch.
Okay, like which one?
So that I can also be able to, because they are not well, to me, they are not well detailed for me to be able to go back and still retry. Quite fine. Some of them are very detailed, especially the one that up to 2 hours, 30 minutes, 15 minutes. But the one that is 3 minutes, 2 minutes, or 1 minute.
Oh, okay.
Those are the ones.
Okay, now I understand. Right. Okay, so most of the ones that were short were for a reason. Right, that's why we now do webinars. Because when we do webinars, it's more detailed and long. Those ones are more like just me recording.
Okay. And now I got. But if I need backup on those short ones, those are the areas that I'm interested in. How can I get in touch and get value for them or whatever what I need to do?
No problem. So one thing I can tell you is that, for example, I know that the MMA has a portion of it, what we call Excel for accountants, where we walk through critical functions that accountants go through, and we walk through them, and there are scenarios and examples that will have them. So aside that, so most likely what will happen is that we may most likely organize a training on Excel for accountants, right? Just one specific training. That one. However, the MMA has an element of Excel for accountants, but we can organize a full-fledged training on Excel for accountants where we do from end to end as a webinar on its own. Now that will happen. I can't tell when, but that may be later on.
Okay. But I can assure you the way things is moving with our accountant and with the team, the sky is your limit. I can assure. Sincerely speaking, you guys are really assisting a lot of life. I would say kudos to you, then keep it up.
Yeah, well, thank you so
much. Thank you very much for the feedback. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, then Fakunda Esther has a hand raised.
Okay, Fakunda, we are with you.
Let me unmute. Okay, Esther, you have the floor. Esther?
Yeah, I said he has replied me already. I chatted him privately.
Oh, okay, great. All right.
Yes, you chatted me privately. I didn't even know when they chatted me privately.
Default response mode.
I've dropped the link called data validation. I said
Yeah, Daniels, please scroll up the chat and you will see the link.
I've dropped it again. I've dropped it again just in case anybody's in doubt. So I think this comes to the end of this webinar. I don't know, in absence of another question, do have a lovely weekend. We'll have an hands-on session where we'll just, it's not going to be a lot of data. We just see how we've applied what we've learned and use it. Oh, okay, Shola has a question.
Hold on. Yeah, Shola, go ahead, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My question is about inquiry for the mini accounting academy that is going to take place in April. So I would like to know, is it going to be during the week? Then which date, so that I'll be able to plan ahead?
So is weekends, it's going to be strictly on weekends. I'm trying to see if I can get a copy of the PDF.
Okay, is the date finalized yet?
Yes, finalized. It's 3rd of April. It's 3rd of April, and it will take place for 8 days, and it's weekends. So if you look at the calendar, right? This is 3rd of April. So 3rd, 4th, 10, 11, then 17, 18, and 24, 25.
Okay, will it be during the afternoon like this one? Or?
Yes, it's going to be for 4 hours. It's going to start around, I think, 10 or 12, depending on the day.
Okay.
So Sundays will be much earlier because of people going to church. But Saturdays, I think we'll start by 10 and end by 2, or 12, end by 4. One of them, I can't remember exactly now.
Okay, I wanted to thank you. That's the clarification I wanted to know, whether weekday or weekend. So it's fine now.
All right, that's fine.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for the training.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, Adishola. So, I don't know what else for the training on the Excel. I've sent the link, right? You can just send an email and we can follow through, right? You can send an email to Actiad and we can follow through on that. Yeah, you can just send an email, then we can now follow that through from there. All right, thank you everybody for your time. Thank you for giving me opportunity to explain what I've learned so far. Do have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, everyone.